Hello everyone, my name is Hamza and I'm back with another episode of Dnotifier tech series. So in our last part we discussed about workflows versus agents, and inside workflows we actually talked about how we can build effective workflows using any LLM providers available. So for that we have multiple techniques. So in the previous session we discussed about prompt chaining, which is actually sequential refinement for quality. Now the second part is parallelization, which means concurrent execution for speed. For example, let's say we have one in the prompt chaining technique we actually discuss about how we can have multiple prompts in a sequence to get the desired output. That adds quality. However, that prompt chaining also adds a latency, because for each prompt you eventually have to call the LLM, get the response, do the processing, and then have to send another request to the LLM, right? So which means multiple HTTP calls are required to achieve that. But that gives you the quality, but on the other side it gives you latency, right? So the response time gets increased. So the second approach to optimize that in terms of performance, which is like the latency, so we follow the approach parallelization, which means concurrent execution to achieve speed. So let's get into it and discuss how we can achieve that. So we discussed previously in our part 1 that how we can achieve the prompt chaining. So today we are going to discuss about how we can achieve parallel tasks. So to run multiple tasks simultaneously rather than sequentially, right? A single topic branches into parallel paths. So and I'll get into the code exactly and I'll show you how you can do it through Dnotifier. So let's get into the code and see how we can achieve it. So over here, again, similarly, basically, I show you over here. So I have defined the agent. How you can define the agent, that is something you can actually look into the official documentation as well. So I added the npm SDK and then I just simply add define agent, and then inside the define agent, I have over here I have the name, and then actually in run method I am actually doing the request to the LLM. So that's the standard way of doing the request to the LLM. This is send AI function is supported by Dnotifier, and you can actually have system rules, user roles. If you want to have a knowledge based question, so you can do that. If you are not using a knowledge base, it's more of a support and a general question, so you can turn it off. And then history just to track the logging. So that is one agent. We created this agent in the first part as well. So we created this agent, we are calling it as an outline planner agent. Same, it's a blog example. Then I have another agent which is the keyword research agent, then another one for the social snippet agent, and then blog content creator agent. So I have created these agents over here. Once all the agents are created, so this is a one time job. All you have to do is you have to create the agents and give the names. So that is all you have to do. You can add any internal logic you want inside that agent. You can create separate classes, separate files. Right now, for the sake of simplicity, I have added that as functions. You can define these into classes as well if you are using TypeScript or any other specific language like .NET, Python. So you can build specific classes for that. Once that is done, so this becomes our main workflow. So in the workflow you can see over here we are using promise.all and running these two agents. So now these two agents will run in parallel as soon as we get the response from these two agents. So we'll move towards the other one, which is the content creator. Now we have the outline planner and also the keyword research, right? Now we know what content to write and how to write it. Then we can actually do the content creator. We can pass the data to the content creator agent, and content creator will actually use those outlines and keywords to create an content. Once that content is created from this agent, then over here we'll actually pass that to another agent, which is the clarity editor and the SEO optimizer. So now another two parallel agents will actually work on it and actually clarify the content and also optimize the content for SEO. And similarly for the social snippets, right? Because for social you won't be having a 500 page item of blog, so you might have like few lines out of that blog that you want to post. So in this way, for social snippets you can have this. So now three parallel agents over here. So two agents first, then the output of those two agents were passed to the single agent, and then the output of that single agent is passed to these three agents, right? And the response of these three agents is something that we want to further process. So that is our workflow. Once that workflow is done, you can either push it to whatever you want to do, that is your business logic. And that's the workflow we have, right? We've actually registered those agents, and we are saying observability equals to true. So in our next session, I'll also show you what that means. Using observability equals to true gives you the visibility of monitoring and traceability through Dnotifier portal. You can actually see the graph, the inputs and the outputs, the latency. You can switch the models, you can play with different models using the same workflow. So I'll get into those details in the next session, but just for the sake of simplicity, here we are using multiple models in parallel to achieve the performance while making sure our quality of the result is not uh, sacrificed. So in this way you can actually get the same quality of quality, however improving the speed. So with Dnotify workflows you can actually do that. It's really simple. Once you learn how to create agents, you just have to create workflows, as many workflows as you want, and keep executing the process. So I'll get back to the slides over here. So that's the topic we covered. In my next session, I'll talk about the routing technique, which is another way of building agents, like for example support agent, sales agent, technical agent. So you can do that over here, right? A router agent will actually pass that information to the to those agents. So you can build that through the notifier. I'll get into that in the next session. So to summarize, in the previous session we discussed about prompt chaining. Today we discussed about parallelization, means concurrent task execution across multiple branches for speed and scalability. Third would be routing, and then we'll try to combine all three patterns into one using Dnotifier. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Follow the Dnotifier page for more updates, and feel free to reach out in comments. Thank you.